Welcome back to Real Estate Radio San Antonio with Karla and Stan Hester here at 9:30 a.m. The Answer. And we've been talking about real estate and the refinance programs that are available and what fits for you, and come in and get your yearly checkup. And as we continue on with some of the questions that have been sent into our website, which is Real Estate Radio SA, that's realestateradiosa.com. You can send in and put your questions in there, but one of the ones that we get is, do I have to refinance with my current mortgage company, or do I have to refinance with my current bank?
And no, you do not. That's the beauty of shopping. So I would say that generally anybody that does mortgages can do it, and so not necessarily are you going to get the best deal if you stay with your current bank. So again, shop. I say shop and see what the rates are and the closing costs are. Again, you want to get that closing cost estimate, good faith estimate, and fee sheet, so you can see what you're getting and what the rate is.
Yeah, and when you refinance, so you're getting a completely new loan, and it's paying off that old loan completely.
Completely.
So it's like selling that house and then rebuying it, so to speak. It's maybe it might be a little easier to understand, but it's completely gone. So if you're with with one of the big banks or whatever, that's completely dissolved and paid off, and you're moving on. So with a new loan, I think that's one of the best things that people can look at. We talk about the refinancing and getting comparison quotes on a loan. And we really, as a mortgage company, a lot of people say, hey, we have this for you, or they might want to work it right through, but take your time, get a couple of quotes from 2 or 3 companies, do your due diligence. I mean, you're spending a lot of money, probably one of the biggest purchases that you'll ever have, and we encourage you to take your time and make sure you're making the right decision with the right company. And hopefully, we always hope that company is with us, but if somebody has a better program, we certainly understand, and
we would tell you that. Yeah, we wouldn't understand. We would tell you, hey, you got a good deal there. Yeah. Go for it.
And things change all the time, like we say. Yeah. Rates are changing several times a day, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they hold true for a day or two. But it's a very fluid market dealing with finances. So, as we, Will, one of the other questions that came through here, and it says, will I automatically qualify if I've never made any late payments?
Unfortunately, no. It goes back to qualifying, okay? You would have to qualify for the new refinance. We'd have to look at, is the payment going up because you're taking a shorter loan term? We'd have to make sure the programs allow for the reduced documentation, like FHA, streamlined refinances. So there are reduced documentation programs with FHA, with VA, even with conventional. But there are still some qualifying, stages that you have to go through. Always you have to pull new credit. So that you have to start there. And in most cases, you do have to verify income.
Okay. So, and we can, we'll lay that all out for,
but
when you're with the lender, they'll tell you everything.
Yeah. But however, on the other note, so does it make any sense? And this question was, will I qualify if I've never made any late payments on my mortgage? Well, no. That doesn't just necessarily qualify you, but that is one of the factors. So if you said it the other way, would I qualify if I had late mortgage payments recently? I would probably say you would not qualify, and we wouldn't have to go any further, unless if you had one, and we could, you would do a letter of explanation what happened on that one. But if you had more than one late payment in the last 12 months, you may not be able to refinance. So those are things that we have to look at. So just always make your payments on time. And that's a very important piece of your credit.
Well, let's kind of transition from refinancing to purchase of a new home, and and we get a lot of questions from first-time home buyers because they've got a lot of questions. They're scared to make this move. A lot of them don't think they can even own a home. And so there's so many programs out there. And if you're looking to purchase your first home, there's a few important tips that a first-time home buyer should know. And we're going to go over that. And one of the big things is, how much can you afford? If this is my first house, how much can I afford on this?
Well, I've seen buyers, as you've, Stan, they can afford a lot more than they want to qualify for or want to buy. So sometimes you have that buyer that is qualified that could qualify for a much higher payment, and those do not want to. They want to keep their payment to the minimum. But it's very important you figure out, and usually in figuring out how much that is you have to look at the combined debt of husband and wife if they're both working, and your combined debt.
Okay. If you've just joined us, you're listening to Real Estate Radio San Antonio with Karla and Stan. You can reach us at realestateradiosa.com. You can send us those questions. You get on there. There's a button that highlights. You can hit that contact button. You can leave your questions, and we'll try to bring those up on one of our shows that we can talk about. So that's realestateradiosa.com. And back here to the first-time home buyer, some of the things that you want to ask and need to know is one of the questions that was is what mortgage is best for me as a first-time home buyer?
A first-time home buyer, it would depend on your credit. It would depend on how much money you're wanting to put down. A first-time home buyer can have 20% down, or might have a gift of 20% down, so they might go conventional. They might be a first-time home buyer going VA, or FHA, or USDA. So it really depends. It's kind of depends on their credit, depends on how much money they have down, and all of those factors. So those all have to, and credit score.
And how do they choose the right, mortgage company, the right bank? How do they choose that person?
Well, like we talked in refinance, you go back to getting a good faith estimate, a fee sheet, and talking to someone that's going to respond to you, someone that's going to answer your call, and you're talking to the same person and not different people every time you call. And anyway, get a quote and set it down and see where the rates and the costs are. But service, there's a lot to say for service, so you hopefully you want to factor that in there.
It's important. Yeah. Service is very important to make sure that you're getting that information so you close on time and make sure you get closed. So
That's
on that
right.
home, so you get that new home. One of the things someone always talks about is points and rates, and I know a lot of that's changing here with all the, and it's not quite as big as it used to be. But exactly what is points is for those out there that kind of know if they have points and rates and fees and can kind of, I know I just hit a whole plethora of information here and different things, but
I mean, a lot of times, every lender is different. Some lenders charge an origination where we don't, and then the points are usually discount points, and those are used to get your rate lower. So let's just say someone qualifies for a 4% interest rate based on their credit score, and they wanted to be at 3.75. So they could buy that rate down with points.
Okay.
Points meaning a percentage. So you're going to have to pay a percentage of that loan amount to get that lower rate, and it's paid at closing. So, but then you have to look at, just to be in the 3%, does it make sense for you to pay that? How long is it going to take you to recuperate those points that you're paying to get that little bit lower interest rate? So that's something you always want to review and see if that's right for you.
Yes, you're sitting in front of your loan officer, and they're bringing up those different scenarios for you, and hopefully it's sitting in there, and they're showing you all of the different scenarios that are available so you can make the correct choice. Those are some of the things that you will go over. One of the things that you need to do is also, they say, hire a home inspector. And of course, lenders require an appraisal, but does the bank require this in determining the home's worth? And those are two different questions that we're going to spend just a couple moments on. One is a home inspector and an appraiser.
A home inspector, Stan, as you know, is that protects your interests and my interests as a buyer. And it lets them know that the foundation is good, the roof is good, because the inspector looks at stuff that we don't see. They look at the electrical and all of that. So that they give you a report, and a home inspection cost is probably anywhere from $300 to $450, depending on the size of the house. So I think that's well worth the investment, because that's going to tell you if there's any repairs that need to be done, then you can go back to the seller and ask for those repairs to be done, and you can still negotiate that because you're in the early part of your contract. And but an appraisal is something the lender requires to make sure the home is valued at the price that you're buying it at. Many times the appraisal will come in higher. You can't use that new appraised value higher. You have to stay with the contract price. But when you get ready to refinance, that higher value will be very beneficial for you. If your appraisal comes lower than your contract, then you and your realtor need to go back to the seller and renegotiate what you're purchasing and see if the seller will reduce that purchase price to meet the appraised value. So that's good for everybody.
And the appraisal on the home is there for security for the lender to make sure that you don't want to lend somebody a house that's worth $100,000 and loan them $200,000 on it because they're never going to be able to sell it. It's not worth. You're not in an equity position at that point, and you don't want to lend money foolishly. And that's how the banks think. The lenders think.
And it's really safe for the buyer. I mean, it keeps the buyer in a safe position. And once the appraiser does the appraisal and gets the comps that's very close to the home that they're buying, the underwriter reviews that appraisal, and she can have questions. She can send it back to the appraiser, and she can say, "I want you to add another comp. I don't see where you're getting the value." So I mean, it's really an important piece of the whole lending process.
Yeah, and that appraisal, I mean, that is so important. I mean, excuse me, not the appraisal, but the home inspection is so important. I mean, we found out many things, and one of the nice things is during the wintertime that they'll find out to make sure that your air conditioning works, and some of these hot weather items work during the cold weather and such. And so, there's just a lot to this. And so, as we're heading out here, our time's up, and we want to thank everyone for joining us and wish everyone a very happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and can't wait to come back in 2015.
Yeah, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place here, when we have Andy Baczynski of the Keller Williams Group, and he's going to be here. Andy's a great guy, a lot of humor, a lot of fun. You'll enjoy him. Don't miss to see you there first of the year. Okay.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.